Well, now let's look at the possible effects of these changes on transatlantic relations. Thomas Kleine-Brockhoff is Vice President of the German Marshall Fund of the United States. Welcome to DW. Even without knowing its final outcome, has this election and the prospect of a Chancellor who is not Angela Merkel changed the country's position internationally?
Well, that's a little early to tell because we don't even know what the coalition will look like. But there are some constant, of course, in the German the geography of the political landscape. All four parties that could potentially form the coalition, that includes the two bigger ones, the Christian Democrats and Social Democrats, support the basic underlying structure of German foreign policy with strong transatlantic relations, with a European devotion, with a commitment to more European integration. I don't think any of this is going away with this election, but there are a number of smaller to medium-sized changes that we might be seeing, especially on China policy, depending on what type of coalition it is on defense spending and NATO. So there are changes, but there are not architectural changes.
Yeah. Let's pick up one of those points, defence spending. We know that NATO has long been a cornerstone of German political policy. We also know, I'm going to put no in quotation marks, that the Greens are likely to be part of the next German government, and they're not so keen on increased military spending towards NATO. So what changes are we likely to see there?
The next coalition, as you say, will include the Greens. We know that. They have been, interestingly, pretty hawkish when it comes to China relations and Russia relations, based on their on human rights policy, but they are hesitant to back up these claims with hard power. Now, they've done a pretty interesting trick in preparation for this election within their party. They've rejected the 2% goal, claiming it will increase the percentage when the economy goes down as a nonsensical goal. But it doesn't mean that they're not willing to increase the defense budget. Olaf Scholz, the likely chancellor, if it comes to that, has said multiple times during the campaign that he stands by doing what he has done during his time as finance minister, moderately increasing the defense budget. So that will not please the Americans because we're not getting to 2% in a couple of years. But the trajectory, I think, will remain the same, and even the Greens will not change that trajectory upward in defense spending.
The 2% that you're talking about, of course, being the 2% of GDP that has been set as a sort of bar for NATO entry from its members. China, you mentioned there as a potential point of friction. Where do you see that happening? How do you see that playing out?
Well, first of all, I think Xi Jinping is changing the perception of China in this country, and he is thus playing a part in changing. Slowly changing, I would have to say, China policy, the assertiveness, wolf warrior diplomacy, the whole behavior during COVID, the ambition that China reaching into Europe, all of this reaches the German population, makes it uneasy. So Xi Jinping is the first player here. The second player is Angela Merkel. She is now, and will be in a couple of months, going off the scene, and she sort of was a holdout of an old China policy, of a policy that's still built on relative openness towards China trade, and trying not to get into the thick of a confrontational attitude towards China. She has been pushing back against all those who tried to take a more distant, even a more hawkish approach on China. She's gone. And that will change the policy. And thirdly, the third element that will change that is Joe Biden and American positioning here. Germany would feel uneasy being left behind in the convoy of Western nations. It won't probably be out front in terms of hawkishness vis-a-vis China, but he also doesn't want to be left behind. So I could see subtle changes or a little bit of a step dance in China policy going forward.
Thank you so much for that. That's very clear. Thomas Kleine-Brockhoff of the German Marshall Fund of the United States.
Thank you.